Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lions Danivore podcast. Dan right here, and I have the privilege to have on a special guest, 52 years old, on Carnivore for 3.5 years. He has lost a total of 85 pounds and counting. You can find him on the YouTube channels Wick Goes Carnivore and Real Talk on Wednesdays. With that, I humbly welcome Brian. What's going on? Good morning, my friend.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, no problem, man. I had to have you on. I wanted to dive into your world, and just to know about your experiences, what led you to this lifestyle. Bumps in the road. I think we all need to express those experiences. But first off, go head first into this Navy SEAL style. Just dive right into it. And how did you come across this lifestyle?
Okay. Well, first of all, I've been overweight most of my adult life. When I was in high school, I was very, very thin, 6'4", and I was like 170 pounds. So I was pretty thin. And then after that, the weight just started coming on, and I was probably 300 pounds by mid to late 20s, somewhere in there. And so most of my adult life, I've been overweight, and I've tried a lot of different diets, and nothing has ever really seemed to work. There's only one diet where I really lost a good amount of weight. That was back in 2017. And I got down to like 250, somewhere in there, and wasn't very sustainable, and I ended up gaining all the weight back. And so by 2018, I had gained the weight back, and I was at this point, I guess, probably 370 or so, 370 pounds. And I developed at that point something called AFib, which is a heart condition where your heart, the heartbeat, whatever, starts going erratic, right? It'll get like really, really fast, and then it'll drop down a little bit, and they'll get really, really fast again, and so forth. When I'm saying fast, I mean like heart rate beats will be like 140, 150 beats per minute.
Oh, wow.
And then it'll drop down to maybe like 90, 100 or so for a few seconds, and then it jumps straight back up again, and so forth. And so the first time I had that was in 2018, and I met with a cardiologist, and they told me that that would just kind of get worse over time. Excuse me. So I had, for me, it's called paroxysmal AFib, which is intermittent. So I'll go into it for a while, maybe a few hours, maybe a day, and then I go out of it, and I'm fine for a while. The other type is persistent, where you're constantly in it. And so for me, it did slowly get worse. So over the next few years, it got to the point of where I would have like 2 to 3 episodes a week of this. And so I had that, that was 370, 375, somewhere in there, maybe close to 380. Not a lot of energy. A bit depressed, had a lot of back pain, hip pain. At night, I would basically sleep for an hour or two, maybe 3 at the most. Couldn't get any more sleep because I was in so much pain with my back and hips. And I'd go down to the recliner and spend the rest of the night sitting on the recliner. Wow. And let's see, I snored, stuff like that. I would have problems with arthritis in my big toes, and then I'd get these flare-ups in my joints. And so when I get a flare-up, it could be in my knees, it could be in my elbow, my ankles. That would happen a lot, my ankles. My foot would get swollen, and it would be like a week or so, maybe 2 weeks at the most, where I could barely walk. It was really swollen, and then it would kind of go away. So that's kind of how that worked. And so, yeah, I just needed to do something, right? Like my health was really bad. At the time I was 48 years old. And I felt like I wasn't going to necessarily live much longer. Didn't know how much longer it would be, that kind of stuff, right? My body was in such bad shape. So I knew I needed to do something. And I knew some people that were doing keto, and that seemed to be working for them. They were losing weight. So in the spring of 2022, I went on keto, and I did that for about 3 months. So I had lowered my carbohydrate intake, and I lost a few pounds, but I didn't really notice changes like with the pain I was in, that stuff, my energy levels, that kind of stuff. And I have been watching Dr. Ken Berry's YouTube channel. That's kind of what I started doing when I first started doing keto. And I heard him talking a lot about carnivore, and I then started looking into carnivore. And over the next few weeks, I really got convinced that carnivore was the way to go and just drop out the carbohydrate intake completely. So in July of 2022, I started doing carnivore. And I noticed pretty quickly a difference. Within the first couple of weeks, I was able to sleep in bed all night. I maybe was still a little sore, but I was sleeping in bed all night, which is the first time in a long time that was happening to me. My wife told me I wasn't snoring anymore, so that was happening. And I noticed that I wasn't having AFib episodes. The AFib just seemed to kind of go away. And again, I was having like 2 or 3 a week. So there were some good signs. About 3 months in, I had lost about 60 pounds.
Wow.
So there's quite a bit of weight loss that was happening with it. My energy levels were slowly starting to rise. I can't say that it happened really overnight, but over the next maybe 6 months, I noticed that. And I was noticing that I still was not going into AFib. So my cardiologist, I didn't tell him I was doing carnivore. I told him I was doing low carb. And he wasn't sure that was a good idea, but he said, it sounds like it could be working. So go ahead and go with it, and let's see how it goes. He started doing different tests. So the first time he had me take a heart monitor for 2 weeks, and I wore that for 2 weeks, and that was good. There were no AFib episodes. So then now it's probably about a year in, and he had me wear a heart monitor for 30 days. And I think I may have done a stress test as well. And that all came back good. So probably, I guess it was like a year and a half in, he decided to take me off of the medication that I was on. There was a blood thinner and so forth. And, it was still one of those where you don't seem to be high risk, but it's not like you can get AFib. It's going to come back again at some point, was his answer.
Oh.
And that was, it's been over 3.5 years. It'll be 4 years in about 3 months, and I still have not had a single AFib episode. He's done more tests. We've done another stress test, a couple of ultrasounds, and more recently, last fall, we did a CAC scan, which was 0. So that's been going well. I will say he's a little concerned at my cholesterol. He was afraid that it was too high. And then this last appointment that I had with him, right? And that was kind of a little upsetting for me, because I don't believe that cholesterol causes a problem. And my cholesterol is actually better than it was the year before. So, and it was 302 for total cholesterol. And when you look at their ranges, it says up to 300 is normal. So for like 2 points over,
Wow.
he wanted to start talking about the statin thing. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. Right. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole cardiologist thing. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. I don't know what I'm going to do. He wants to do another heart monitor test, and I'm kind of at the point that I'm feeling like, okay, I can do this. It's a good idea to have it done anyway, but I feel like it's just a waste of money to keep doing these different things when I'm not having these symptoms.
Right.
And I wear a Fitbit. I can tell when I go into AFib, it just hasn't happened. And every test he's done has showed that it hasn't happened in like 3.5 years. So that's kind of been a little bit annoying. But anyway, so that was probably the biggest like health related thing that has happened. But other things happen too. Like the back pain and the hip pain that I talked about is completely gone. I don't have that anymore. I don't have the flare ups with like the ankles or the elbows or any of that kind of stuff. So those things don't happen to me anymore. I haven't had any more x-rays done on my big toes. So I don't know if I still have arthritis, but I don't have any arthritis pain there like I used to. I can bang them accidentally into the wall or something, and I don't have a problem. Where in the past I do that and my big toe would get, swollen up, so forth. So that doesn't happen anymore. I think I said, but I have better energy now. There was a few years there before Carnivore that I never really wanted to do anything. I just wanted to sit on the couch. And now I like to go out and do things, especially if like the sun's out. I like to get outside, take walks, whatever, go hiking, that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then overall I've lost about 85 pounds. I will say in the last year or so, there really hasn't been any weight loss, but I still see a difference in composition and, changes, like doing measurements. Maybe in the last year, I think I've lost about 2 inches on my waist. So there's still things like that happening. And, I don't know exactly with the weight, if it's just a difference of, I'm losing a little bit there, a little bit of fat, but then I'm gaining muscle, or what it is. But so the weight loss has kind of stayed the same, but still, I mean, it's been like 85 pounds. I could lose more. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I'm not very concerned because my main thing is the health improvements that I've had. So I guess that's basically it in a nutshell.
Wow. Just the reset it's astronomical, from the beginning of your journey, from all of these ailments, how the back pain, the inflammation, the AFib have all subsided and many have gone away. It's just, it's astounding to hear this, because there are so many people that have gone to specialists to get at least one, not all of them, just one ailment of what you described to go away. And unfortunately, when you go to a specialist, they focus on that ailment, they focus on the symptom, they give you a pill, and then it gets better, but then it triggers something else. Just for the mere fact that, the arthritis, that's getting better. Just the stamina. That's where I wanted to kind of dive into the energy itself. Have you incorporated fasting a little bit more into this lifestyle? And if you did, does it improve your energy? Does it extend it? And how has your mindset been throughout this journey? Is it stronger? Is it more focused? Are you more sensitized to things that may hurt you?
Yeah. So fasting, I look at fasting as two different things, two different ways. There's intermittent fasting and then what I call regular fasting. I think most people, describe it that way. And straight from the start with Carnivore, I've been doing intermittent fasting, where somewhere like probably an 18 to 24 hour window. So probably a lot of times I'll eat 2 meals a day, sometimes one meal, but a lot of times it'll be 2 meals a day, but they'll be within probably 6 hours. So I might eat at noon and then again at like 6 p.m. And then there would be 18 hours in between before I eat again. Or if it's just once a day. There's 24 hours in between. So I consider that intermittent fasting. And I've been doing that since the beginning with Carnivore. Um, I guess it was last fall. So in the last 4 or 5 months or so here, I started doing some fasting, which longer term fasting. So 48 to 72 hours worth. And typically I'll go 72 hours. So like maybe I'll eat last on a Monday and then not eat Tuesday or Wednesday, and I would eat again on Thursday. I think that's yeah. So I would do that, right? And that's like a 72-hour fast. I haven't done quite as much of that in the last month, but typically when I do that, I will notice like maybe 3 pounds or so of loss. And then over like the next week, it comes back. So it's just a matter of maybe some water weight or something, or something that I lose, and then it kind of comes back. But the difference really, like kind of you were alluding to, is like energy and just your mindset and how you feel and so forth. And I think really fasting is very good for visceral fat. So if you have any of that more hidden fat that you can't see, like a lot of people say, somebody has like big cheeks or a bit of a belly. Well, that typically is subcutaneous fat, and that's the fat you can see. Visceral fat is more internal, and it's wrapped around organs like your heart and so forth. And it's not necessarily something you can see. So that in studies seems to be reduced best with different things. And one of those things is fasting, like a 48 to 72 hour fast. So I think that's key to try and make sure that your visceral fat is to a minimum. And so between that and like energy levels, like when I do a 72-hour fast, I would say around the 20 to 24-hour mark, usually I will get hungry, and I'll be hungry for a little bit. But if I let that go, just drink some water, I seem to get past that. And I will say when I do fast, it's not usually a dry fast. I do drink water still. So I have not tried any dry fasting. I'll just drink water, but not eat anything. And once I get past that, like my energy and my mood seems to really change. I seem to have better energy, and also my thought process, my mind seems clearer and that kind of stuff. When I'm around that 48 to 72 hour range, that seems to be the best range, believe it or not, for working out, exercising, that kind of stuff. And like I like to do push-ups, and when I do push-ups, it seems like I can do more push-ups at that point fasted than I can when I've ate maybe an hour or two ago. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at fasting. And the other thing you were talking about, the mindset, mind clarity and that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing I've noticed with carnivore as a whole is that things seem more simple, I guess, to me, right? Like in the past, I didn't think the same way that I do now with things. And there's some things that I look at now and I say, like, why do we do that as a society? Or why would I do that when that just it just doesn't seem to make the best sense to me. Like it doesn't seem like that is what we as humans should be doing. And that seems to be the biggest thing. The other piece of it would be calmness, in that I seem to be a lot calmer than I used to be. And a good example is before Carnivore. So I had a job where I would be traveling in traffic a lot, and I'd get very upset at the traffic, right? That doesn't really happen now. And it's funny because my wife has even mentioned before, when we were in traffic, she's like, how are you not getting upset that we're sitting here in this traffic? And I'm just like, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know. So that has been a big change as well. So the whole mindset thing, I think, is more of like clarity. You can reason and see things clearer and better than before, and more calmness. Not, I don't feel like I'm as angry of a person that I used to be, that kind of stuff.
Wow, you're nailing it. It's so true with just not having that knee jerk reaction, because it's you explained everything that happened to me yesterday. I was like at this car dealership, and something that should have not happened occurred. And I know in years past, I would have lost my blank, right? And I'm like, but I assessed it, I broke it down, and the person that committed that mistake, I would have been really hard to come down on that guy. But I was like, you know what? Don't worry. Things happen. We learn from it. Let's just rectify it and move on. The supervisor was so like blown away because he'd never experienced that. And I think as a community, we're all experiencing that kind of zen, if you will, where before I make a decision, I know the ramifications, what could occur if I go this route. I could understand the anxiety that comes along with it, the stress that will follow. And then it's like you're seeing it happen before it does, and then you choose more wisely. So this segues me into the video that got me really hooked with you. You posted a video this week regarding a, I'm going to label it as I know it's not, it's not a mistake or anything of that, but like the forbidden fruit, right? Because it happens to all of us. We're on this journey for a long time, and then we see something sweet, and we're like, you know what? Let me just try it just for a little bit because I could always go back on. And I think you described it as the frosting, right? Was it the frosting?
Yeah.
So you took a little dip of it, and then did you feel like you went back in? What was it? There were two experiences, right? That you had, like dabbling back into it, and then you had to try again to go back into carnivore. Can you go through that?
Yeah. So the first time, I guess, was probably around a month or so ago. So to give a little background here, one of my daughters is getting married in early May, so we're a little over a month away.
Nice.
And
congrats, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So when she was looking for someone to do the cake, she was having trouble finding somebody that was doing it just the way she wanted. And my wife is good, I guess, at baking, that kind of stuff. So she decided that she would try to make a wedding cake and see if she could do it. And it worked pretty well. So my daughter said, okay, you're going to make the cake for me for the wedding. So my wife's been kind of experimenting. And so my wife does not eat carnivore, just put it out there. So this is kind of where my situation gets weird compared to somebody that is alone or with somebody that also does carnivore, right? So for me, there's always these temptations in the house, potato chips, whatever it is. And so she had made a cake, and she had a can of frosting for cake that she left on the counter. And I can't remember exactly why, but she went out of town for the weekend. So she was gone. Mm-hmm. And, typically for me, it's in the pantry. I don't look at it. I don't really need anything that's in the pantry, that type of thing. But it was on the kitchen counter. And I admit that I'm the type of person that before carnivore, I ate a lot of carbs. I was a carbaholic, addicted to carbs, whatever you want to say, right? Like that was me. I liked eating carbs, and not necessarily sweets, but frosting, icing, whatever you want to say, was something that really I liked. And I could easily do, like, if somebody made a cake and there was leftover frosting, I would scoop up the frosting. So for like a day, I was looking at this can of frosting on the
Eating.
counter and I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do it.
Right, right.
And then finally I said, you know what? I'm going to have some of it. So I opened it up and I had a taste of it. And it brought back these crazy cravings to want more. Right.
Mm.
And so that was in the evening on a Friday evening, I believe. So between that evening and the next day, I continued to eat that can of frosting. So I ate an entire can of frosting. And the crazy thing is, I'm trying to remember exactly, because this was a little over a month ago, exactly what happened. And I don't remember the full details, but I do remember that evening on Saturday, my lower back started to hurt. And I didn't at first think much of anything of it, but by the next morning, it was really bad. Like it was kind of hard to walk, really sore. And so I started thinking, okay, this has got to be the frosting that I ate. And, you know, it's inflammation from eating all of that sugar, whatever. There's a lot of seed oil. If you look at the ingredients, excuse me, there's a ton of ingredients in this. You know, it was a store-bought frosting, and there's just a ton of ingredients in it. I can't even pronounce some of the ingredients that were in it. So it was bad for you. And I had issues with my back being really sore. So I couldn't really do any push-ups or that kind of stuff for a while. I wasn't standing necessarily straight, and walking up and down steps was really hard. And that happened probably for 3-4 days or so. And then it kind of seemed to lift and went away.
Yeah.
So now that takes me to this last issue where I did the last video on. And again, my wife was working on a cake, and she actually was making homemade frosting this time. But I said, okay, I know what happened the last time. I'm not going to make that mistake, but you know what? I'm just going to take a couple of little swipes with my finger. So I had a couple swipes of frosting with my finger, and I started to have some issues again. A couple of toes in my left foot actually swelled up, and I dealt with that for a couple of days. So again, it was just the frosting and just a little bit of frosting that gave me issues. So another reminder that I can't eat that stuff, but even more powerful that before I thought it was like, oh, I ate an entire can of frosting and that was the problem because that's crazy no matter what, right?
Right.
But no, just a couple of little swipes with my finger and I had a problem. Now, my wife was like, I don't understand that because, you know, she's like, I could have a piece of cake with frosting and I don't have problems like that. And for me, I'm thinking, well, there's a couple of things with this. Number one, and I, you know, my wife probably won't see this, so that's okay, but I love her and everything. But she asks for a back rub a lot, and I'll give her a back rub, and she'll be like, oh, doesn't it just drive you nuts how like you get a certain part in your back that just seems to always hurt? And I'm like, no, I don't have that problem. Like my back never hurts really. Unless of course I use frosting apparently. But you know, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't happen. So for her to say like she has frosting and doesn't have any problems, she's also somebody that chronically has some sort of pain in her body. And she thinks that it's just a part of life, just part of aging. And that's how I used to think with things too. And how I had that back pain and the hip pain and different things. And I get the flare ups and all that stuff. You know, I figured it was part of aging. Well, I'm older now. I was 48 then. I'm 52 now. And I don't have that kind of stuff happening when I'm eating the proper way, eating a carnivore based diet. not eating all this processed food and so forth. So it's not necessarily a part of aging. It's the diet that you're eating. And that's the way I look at it, that, okay, she doesn't necessarily notice it because she's always feeling some sort of pain or whatever. And since I don't eat those things, that little bit of pain is like, whoa, I got something going on here. Right. So I think that's part of it. And I think the other part of it is just that your body can tolerate to a certain extent when you have stuff like that. And when we're at the point that I am where I've not had any pain, not had any of that stuff in my body, my body will just be like, whoa, you shouldn't eat that. Here's a quick reminder. I'm going to give you some pain, that type of thing. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And that's kind of what happened, I guess, with the frosting thing.
There's a lot of layers here, right? That I want to dive into. Number one, I think what you're experiencing living in a home, that you're the only carnivore, I think many of us go through that, right? I know I'm for one. And it's all around me. It's like all of these temptations are all around me. And, Dr. Kiltz always says it's a mindset. It's a mindset. And I do agree with that partially. 90% of it, I believe it is true. We made a conscious decision where, all right, you know what? These foods are not good for me. Let me do an elimination diet and follow it that way. The other layer is when we start introducing things, such as frosting. For me, anything that resembles a carbohydrate that gets turned into sugars, the chemistry of it, how it works within your microbiome. I think once one trigger, to me, it just takes one trigger. It turns on all the switches, all of them. And as much as certain individuals want to say it's a mindset, it's just, I'm just going to have a little bit and that's it. For me, it was a food disorder. I don't know how else I could even describe it. What you just said about the icing, I think not only you, myself, I don't stop. Like I remember with a good friend of mine, we went to a deli and I bought, those things of Haagen-Dazs. They're like, yeah, like this.
Yeah.
A normal person, if you read the back, it says 1 scoop. I ate that like an Italian icy, just squeezing it and eating it, squeezing it and eating it. Not normal. Even my friend, bust my chops today. He's like, that, what the heck was that? But why I wanted to kind of merge this was, I think that, I know I might get in trouble with this, but it's true. I think an individual like myself and you, we need time. We need a long period of time to stay away from all of this noise. Maybe 20 years in, 15 years in, when we're so conditioned, where we're like, all right, you know what? I'll take a little spoonful of ice cream, and then we could continue to walk away. I think all of our years leading up to this point, that microbiome, those little microbes in there, it's very difficult to get rid of all the evil ones. And I think once they take a taste of anything sweet, even an apple for me, like something that when I speak to the layman person, they're like, what are you talking about? It's fruit. It's natural. But I think there's no discretion within that microbiome. They're like, okay, let's begin colonizing. We got all that we can. We got to revert this back to how it was before, because this was our land. It's the weirdest thing. And it makes it that much tougher. And I don't know, like, again, I heard that the microbiome has a direct phone line to your brain. And immediately, once it starts chewing all this stuff up, all this glucose, it starts sending messages all over. Back pain, the toe, the knee, everything, to the point where you're like, how do I get back on my feet? How do I, man, it's this monster again coming towards me. And it took me so long to fight it. My question is, how is your mindset now going forward? Now that you know all of this, that you tried it twice, right? The first one was the whole thing of frosting. The second time was just this much. I'm more than sure it was even less than a quarter of this tip of the pen. But that's all the body needs. And that's why I strongly believe it is a damn addiction. And I'm going to finish it like this. And I know that this doctor says the same thing. You know, it is a mindset. This is a mindset. If you focus, if you say, okay, I'm going to have a little bit and then move on. But haven't we come to the conclusion that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine? Like there's have been studies of such. So which I'm not a recovering cocaine addict, you know, and I'm not trying to make light of it or anything, but doesn't it go along the same timeline? Like, let's say if I'm a recovering drug addict and I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to take just a little bit of this white powder because mind over matter, you know, I'm just going to have a little bit. And then tomorrow, normal life, 8 to 4 job, you fall back. Even this, like, Rick, good morning. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. There's this phenomena going on with the carnivore community of the ice cream, right? This carnivore ice cream. To me, it's setting us up for failure. It's the exact same things that trigger our whirlpool back into this mess and where we started. Anything that triggers it, like, all right, I'm gonna have some fun. Like the days of rewarding myself got me into that mess. Like my reward now is feeling good, no brain fog, kind of like what Carrie does from Homestead How. Like I think many of us are on that trajectory, like where we came from with all these ailments, including your testimony, Brian. Like, wow, what have you done to kind of barricade yourself from allowing the negative sugars back into your life?
Yeah, so I would say that the biggest thing that I do is that I tend to eat a lot of the same foods all the time. And I'm glad you brought up the carnivore ice cream thing because that is an interesting thing. There are people that do that. There are people that feel that they need variation and that helps them. And as long as they don't have a big problem to where they go and actually eat real ice cream that has a lot of sugar in it, then they're probably okay. But there are other people that, like you said, it can lead to them eating the real ice cream and then relapsing back into eating carbs again or having whatever type of pain or something like that. I actually tried Dr. Kilt's ice cream, carnivore ice cream before. And for me, at least for me, I don't really get the hype around it because it was okay, but it wasn't as good as eating a steak or taking ground beef and make my own burger patty. Like to me, that stuff tastes so good that I didn't think I really needed it. And it kind of takes me off my routine. Like typically I eat some sort of beef, usually, whether it's ground beef made into burger patties or it's some sort of steak, something like that. That's typically what I eat. I'll eat some eggs. Sometimes I'll have a little bit of chicken or pork, but mostly it's beef. And that becomes kind of a routine for me. Like most days I'm making burger patties or I'm having some sort of steak. And eating something different, like the ice cream, just takes me out of my routine a bit. And when you take me out of routine, that
Mm.
can bring on the thoughts of, oh, maybe I should try something different. And then when you try something different, that's when you get yourself into trouble. So I don't really get the whole idea of the carnivore ice cream for that reason. And I think I don't want to be cruel because I think there are people out there that do perfectly fine with it and they want that variation. But I think that if people are still wanting a lot of variation, they're not looking at eating is in terms of something that you need to fuel your body for your health and
Mm.
more of an enjoyment out of eating. And that's the whole idea that got everybody into the mess that we've gotten into. And it's a fact that these companies have scientists that are trying to make the food as addicting as possible. That's why there's so many different ingredients in it. That's why there's ingredients that you can't even pronounce. It's probably some type of sugar or something like that in it. And that's the idea, right? It's a company. They don't exist if they don't make a profit. They don't make money. So they want you to keep coming back and eating their food. And that has gotten us into trouble by the pleasure of eating. If you look at it more as I need to eat to fuel my body and I should only be eating when I really need to eat,
Mhm.
then it kind of changes things and it makes things more simpler and it's easier to get on a routine. It's easy if you're the type of person that eats 3 times a day. It's easy to hit that 3 times a day. If you eat twice a day, same thing twice a day, probably around the same times, and eat similar thing each day. You get in this routine. If you eat once a day, it's probably the same thing. There are people out there that it depends. You know, they just eat when they feel the hunger, and so some people might eat one day and then eat the next day and then skip, and it's a couple days before they eat again because they just aren't that hungry. And I hear a lot from people say, well, meat to me just doesn't necessarily taste that good. And when I eat like the carnivore ice cream or something else, that the taste is better, right?
Mm.
And I wonder, and I don't really want to upset people, so I don't usually ask these questions, but I wonder if the reason this is happening to them is because they're not truly hungry. And it's really hard to eat meat when you're not hungry. It doesn't
Right.
taste as good and so forth. But you eat these other things, it might have a little bit of fake sugar or something in it, or you know, if it's got milk, there's probably some natural sugar, that type of thing in it, and it changes for you, right? Like it has a little bit of a taste, better taste to it. So if you're eating, let's say, a steak and it doesn't taste good, maybe you don't actually need to eat right now. And I sometimes can even say that I have been guilty of that, where I have ate steak and I'm like, this isn't as good as normal.
Yes.
Well, in
Yeah, yeah.
reality, I probably didn't need to actually eat it at that time. And that's normally how I know when I can stop eating too. Like I start eating that steak and it tastes really good, really juicy, that kind of stuff. And I
Mhm.
get towards the end, I'm like, I'm kind of chewing this. It's like, maybe I'm not hungry anymore. Maybe I need to stop eating. And I guess that's what you got to look at instead of looking at the pleasure of it. It's really about fueling your body. And if you think about it and you go back, but people like to get upset about talking about the whole going back thousands of years type of thing and the cavemen and so forth. But if you go back to that, do you think that they were sitting there and eating all the time because they thought that the food tasted good? Or did they just eat because they needed to? Sometimes maybe they had not eaten in a few days because they had to do a hunt, whatever. But, you know, they ate because they needed to. And if the same thing, like people say, well, they also ate berries and so forth like that. Well, yeah, probably because they needed to. It wasn't that they just wanted to have these feasts and all that stuff and eat all the time, all day long. You know, that kind of thing didn't happen in the past. Even, you know, until probably a few hundred years ago, you didn't really have a lot of that kind of thing happening. It's mind-boggling that you can talk to people and say, um, well, the idea of breakfast was created, and I'm trying to remember, it was like at the Industrial Revolution, I believe it was. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, how did people go without eating breakfast? Like, breakfast has always been a thing. Like, no, it hasn't.
Mhm.
No, it actually was created during the Industrial Revolution because they were working people so much that they wanted to make sure that they had enough energy to do their jobs. So they had to eat a breakfast. That's when breakfast actually got created. Like hundreds of years ago, breakfast didn't even exist. And talking to some people in today's age, they don't get that concept. They don't understand because it's all about the enjoyment that they get out of eating and so forth.
I couldn't agree more. That's something where I always think of before all of this, these food pyramids, whatever the case is. And if we take that same example, going back so many years, 100 years, food was scarce, you know? And in order to survive, let's say springtime, summertime, whatever the case is, there's berries, there's food that sprout from the ground. For you to actually go out and hunt a buffalo, whatever the case is, was it necessary? Were you eating this every month? You would eat, like, I don't know, maybe a deer every 2 months, but you had enough here. And then when the wintertime would come, absolutely nothing's growing, so you have to go out and hunt whatever's moving. Now, the thing is, here you have a drug dealer called the supermarket open 24 hours a day. So if I introduce a blueberry, again, a simple something that is natural, fruitful, it has antioxidants, good stuff. The moment I bite into it, and this is not a mindset, that's the thing that blows my mind. It's not a sign of weakness. Again, I keep hearing this. Well, you have to curb the amount. No, it is part of the food, of the disorder, the eating disorder. It is part of the addiction that I'm trying to stay away from. The moment I eat that blueberry, guess what I'm going to do next, Brian? I'm going to go straight to a Stop and Shop or a Publix, and I'm going to buy an enormous thing of blueberries. Okay, I'm going to bring that home. I'm going to finish that up. And now that I live with a non-carnivore who I love immensely, I'm going to open up the fridge and I'm going to see a yogurt. I'm going to grab that yogurt, open it up, finish that up. And then I'm going to go back to the enemy within, which is that refrigerator. I'm going to open it up. It's going to shed a false light on me. And I'm going to see what else. Oh, cake. Let's do it. Eat some cake. Finish that all up. Close it up. Go to the cabinet. Some cereal. I'm going to grab a box of Cheerios. It doesn't even matter if it's Frosted Flakes, whatever the case is. Fill the bowl with milk. Eat that up. Hop on the couch. Watch some Seinfeld. Get up. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes later. Go back. I'm going to go back until I consume everything. And then when I go back onto the couch, there's this bliss point that my body, right now, it's suppressed. It's dormant, but it wants to, I sense it. Even though I've been on carnivore for over a year, I sense that. And it cannot wait to slip up. It's the wildest thing. It's like I always have to stand guard. Not that I'm yearning for it, but like my body is saying, man, you have no idea what you're in for if you just give me one chance, because we're going to make this 10 times as hard for you to go back onto carnivore. Do you follow that? Do you feel like that can happen to you and so many others?
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to bring up real quick, Rick in the comments below had asked, what's wrong with enjoying your food? Yeah. So here's an interesting piece of this, because I enjoy my food that I eat. I love eating steak. There's a difference between enjoying your food and eating just because you're eating for the enjoyment, and eating all those processed foods that have been worked in a lab to make you like them and want to keep eating more and more of it. So there's a difference there. So I want to point that out. But yeah, going back to everything here, I think talking about the fruit again too. Something that people don't understand is the fruit that we have today is not the same fruit that they had hundreds of years ago. A lot of the fruit that tastes sweeter now used to be bitter.
Yes.
And just because of different things that were done with the soil, but also with kind of chemically changing the fruit over the years. Same thing for like potatoes. This is a good example I like to use. It used to be that there was just like one or two types of potatoes. Now there's a ton of different types of potatoes just because of the different, I don't know what the exact wording is because I'm not an expert on this thing, but you know that they cross germinate, I guess, or I don't know what the exact word is, but you know, so that there's some foods that exist now that didn't exist before in terms of fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. But especially on the fruit side, most of the fruit out there is sweet tasting now, and it used to be bitter tasting before. And there's a reason for that. They've you know done whatever to make that crossbreeding. There you go. Rick's got it there for me. And it makes it more taste better so that people want to eat more of it. So yeah, going back to the question though, let's make sure I got this question right here. So I think that is a big problem in that you can go down that snowball effect of if you eat something that you shouldn't, it can just lead to eating something else or more of it, and it getting worse and worse. And I guess I want to make sure that that was kind of the question that you had, right? Because I kind of went off a little bit of a tangent there.
It's all good.
The question. Okay, good. So I am a person that believes in mindset, yet I still make mistakes myself, and that's because mindset is only as good and as strong as you make it. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. Yep.
So here's perfect example. I tell everybody, and this tends to generally be true, but if you're trying to do something that is really difficult for you, and we're going to use diet here as the example. So you're trying to change what you're doing and not eat bad foods. If you just go into it, you don't have like a goal, you don't have a good why that you're doing it, it's a lot harder to be successful because you don't have something to remind yourself of. So mindset is good in that aspect. But you have to have a really good why. If your why is I want to lose 30 pounds, that's great. But why do you want to lose 30 pounds? What is very emotional and personable to you, right? For me, I'll use my example. And it is that I want to watch my kids get older, get married, have kids of their own where I can be a grandpa, that kind of thing. And that I'm healthy enough that I can play on the floor with those grandkids. I want to be able to get old with my wife. And as I retire, be able to go out and doing things like hiking and stuff like that. And not just be where I am really old and hurting and have to just sit, right? So that is my why. So that's a very passionate why. That's a very personal why to me. And that works out good. But here's the other part to it. Just because you have that why, if you don't remind yourself of that why all the time, you lose sight of that why. And that has happened to me. That happened to me with the frosting, right? Like I gave in to a temptation.
Right.
And even though I knew it was the wrong thing to do, I just gave into it. And I wasn't really reminding myself of, you know what, this is why I do what I do. So it is very important that you have that why and you remind yourself every day and even say it out loud. Like sometimes people are like, oh, that kind of sounds stupid. Like, I don't want to just say it out loud. But you know what? That is very powerful for your mind, your mindset, um, being on your consciousness. Like, if you actually say it out loud and nobody else has to be in the room, you could be like before you go to bed or when you wake up in the morning, you just say your why to yourself and really think about it. Like, that tends to get more in your consciousness and it may help you in that moment of a craving, a temptation, whatever. Uh, Same thing like if you're going to go to a party and you know you're going to have temptations, make sure, first of all, probably that you eat beforehand so you're kind of full. So there's not as much of a temptation, but remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. And if you're at the point that you've had these positive experiences already, remind yourself of the positive experience and what you felt beforehand. And I think that that's very good for it because you're right. If you go into it and you have just one little thing because you're like, you know what, I can eat this. It's not a problem. I'm now going to say, okay, now I can have a second one or something. Or, that was kind of good. It didn't bother me. I'm going to try something else. And then next thing you know, you're going down that bad path.
I agree. Yep. 100%.
So, yeah. So I think that's the problem that people run into. And that's also why mindset doesn't always help. It can help, but you kind of have to have the right mindset about a mindset in order to help.
Well put, Brian. Exactly right. I think that's what it is. Like knowing what can hurt you, what can promote an ailment. You said something very interesting earlier. You said about age-related ailments that we've kind of, and I know I'm paraphrasing here, where we've come to a conclusion that we've accepted as a society. I was Googling here key age-related issues. Adolescents, 13 to 18, acne, mental health issues, sport injuries, asthma. What? 30s to 40s, high cholesterol. Oh, that pesky cholesterol. Pre-diabetes, high blood pressure, increased cancer of risk. This is 30 to 40. Now, middle age, 41 to 60, which I don't agree with that middle age range. I don't. I honestly think it's probably 70 to 60 to 85. Believe it or not, I think if we really take care of ourselves, middle age is around 60, because that's what it was to me growing up. Like SNL, Saturday Night Live, used to have this skit called Middle Age Man. And the middle-aged man was Mike Myers, and he was about 60, 65. Now, all of a sudden, middle age is what? 41. Yeah, osteoporosis, menopausal symptoms, early cardiovascular issues, weight gain, older adults, 60 plus. This is what's expected. Age-related ailments, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, cardiovascular, high blood pressure, stroke, coronary heart disease, cognitive and nervous system, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, sensory and others, hearing loss, cataracts, diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, shingles, and incontinence. Yep. Yeah, the future looks really bright, which is crazy, which is insanity that we have come to the conclusion that this is factual. The problem is that this is true because of how our diet has been. Our diet has solidified all of these age groups that this is going to happen. If you follow this way of breakfast is the most important meal of the day, you wake up, you have your slice of orange, your coffee, your toast, your margarine, and then from 8 to 12, when you're at work, you already had your breakfast, you're talking to your coworkers about lunch. It's 10 a.m., nowhere near. Lunch is nowhere near. But, what are you having? I'm going to have some pizza. What are you having? I'm going to go to this burger spot. All right. Your mind is already set. Now you're thinking about food. Let's snack. What do you got? Oh, well, I have some donuts here. So you start eating now at 10:30. You already had 2 meals before 12. Now you go to 12. It's lunchtime, and you scarf down some General Tso's chicken. Was a horrible captain, by the way. And then you come back to work, and you're deflated. You have no energy. You're falling back. You're falling asleep. That's not good. And then you need a snack because you're going to work there till 4 p.m. You eat a little snack, a little power bar. Oh, you need that power bar because you're keeping the animal, the monster awake, right? Because you're crashing. You got to bring it back up. Now it's 4 o'clock. You clock out. You're hungry. You know you got dinner waiting for you, but you're going to make a pit stop at a 7-Eleven to get those yummy, juicy wings that they have there that's on sale. Scarf them down. Now, again, you had 4 meals before dinner. You go to dinner, you sit down, and it's normally not even with family anymore. It's like they already had their food, and you're just sitting there, and you're eating alone, and thoughts are going through your head, and you're eating your pasta. Now 7 o'clock comes. Everyone's kind of, easing down. You're going to go back to the kitchen, eating some pudding, some snacks, something just to keep you good. Right there, you're at your 6th meal. Now 10 o'clock comes. You're wired. You're going to go downstairs to your kitchen. You're going to eat a little snack for that little bliss point. That's 8 meals a day. Sugar levels through the roof. Back pain, knee pain like me, lower back pain, shoulder, lethargic, can't think. And guess what, Brian? We're going to do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next month and the next year. And then all of a sudden, guess what? These statistics, you can't take them to court because they're all right. They're all true. And when when you're trying to break, and I do apologize that I'm going on a little soliloquy here, but it's true. When you break out of this matrix and you get unplugged and you start seeing the world, wait a minute, I'm going to choose my age ranges. When I'm at 50, like you put it, Brian, you nailed it. You want to see your family. You want to see your children. You want to see your grandchildren. When we really look back into civilizations, there was a prolonged life of 120 years, 130 years of life expectancy, meaning that you were seeing 2 generations to 3 generations in your life. You were seeing the lineages. So all of your stories, all of the history of your family would always live on. Now they have it down to a science. And it's a perfect science because you have all of these bright geniuses that come together for the wrong of mankind. I love the fact that this community, including yourself, Brian, Rick, Sandy, all the individuals watching this show, believe it or not, are fighting against this. They're fighting. Now, I'm going to bring this up. And I think Rick is partially true. Now, Rick, with this being said, the same way how we have been damaged, if we go through a route that we can heal the next generation, the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. We could be like a civilization. I forgot what it was. I think they're in Peru. They've never suffered from cancer. It's a small little village. I got to get it out to you, Brian. Small little village. Never saw a dentist. Their teeth are immaculate. Digestive system, the best. They're always working. They're always doing something. They're always moving around. How do we get back to that health, Brian? How do we shift our community to that next level of never looking back, learning from our past, and moving forward?
That's a great question. I think that if you think about it, with technology, we've gotten to a point of more instant gratification as a society. That's what we want. And you can't fix years of bad eating instantly. And that's one reason why I think a lot of people will try carnivore and they don't stick with it, because they don't see results right away. Yeah, I saw different things happen early on, and then other things took a long time. And here's a perfect example. My blood pressure still isn't where it should be. There are pieces of me that are still not where it should be metabolically. I should still have less fat on me than I have. But I had 48 years of bad eating. I can't expect that overnight everything's just going to go away. It's going to take years to fix some of those things. Some things can fix quicker. Some things are going to take longer. And as a society, going back to like what Rick said, yeah, it could take us a long time for that type of thing. And people don't like that. They want instant gratification. Fortunately, that is one of the reasons why pills are a big thing in our society. Obviously, the drug companies want to make money, so they're going to promote those things. But people look at it as, oh, I can take a pill and lose weight instead of actually do the work and put the hard work in. I'm going to do that. Well, here's the problem. Those GLP-1s, you now have to take that pill for the rest of your life. Because if you stop taking that, the suppression that happens from that pill and not eating as much that goes away. Like, you're going to go back to eating, and you're eating the same foods because you didn't change how you eat. Insanity would be thinking that I can go back to what I was doing before and not the same thing happen. That would be like people asking me, like, are you really going to do carnivore the rest of your life? Yeah, why not? I don't believe that the bad stuff out there is good for you in the first place, but why would I go back to something that created what it did by the time I was 48 years old? Yep. Because the same thing's going to happen again. Like, that's when I eat the Frosty. Like, it's a reminder. My body reminds me, don't do that. If you go back to eating the bad things, that's going to happen. And, back in the older days, when you're talking about, like, we lived until 120, we didn't have the majority of the food that is in the grocery stores today. And that wasn't an issue. They didn't have to deal with those temptations.
Absolutely.
And it was a lot easier. It's going to be very, very difficult to get society as a whole to go away from the instant gratification and really work at things, especially as we're always feeding new technology and saying, look, this is easier. You don't even have to really do research on stuff anymore. You just go to Chat GPT or whatever, or Grok or whatever it is, and you just look it up and it spits everything out for you. I mean, it's crazy. Like, if I am struggling to really come up with a good topic for my YouTube channel,
yep,
I just go to Chat GPT and say, this is my YouTube channel. What's a good topic? And it gives me 20 different topics. I don't even have to think about it. So people don't have to think about things anymore. It's all easy, and all they think is the easy button. And the easy button is taking that medication. And it seems insane to you and me, but there are people out there that say, yeah, I'd rather just take this medication than actually stop eating that food that I enjoy so that my back stops hurting. I'll just take the medication and mask it instead. And it's sad, but that's what people do. And that's the big problem. Like, we're in reality a small community, and it doesn't matter if you're carnivore, you're keto, or even, to be honest, if you're vegan. It's got its own problems long term, I'm
Right.
gonna say. But look at what a lot of those people are doing. They're eating whole foods
Mhm.
and they're saying, I'm getting better. I got better from where I was. Of course they did, because they were eating pure crap, processed foods that were designed to make them want to eat it. There's so much food out there that is not actual real food. It's not natural. And people just don't understand. Like, you got Bill Gates out there making butter because butter is supposedly bad for you. You got people out there making fake meat, lab grown meat. That is not real natural stuff. They look
Mm.
at the ingredients. They're putting all kinds of different chemicals and stuff in it. You don't know what that's doing to your body. And most likely that is hurting your body when that stuff didn't exist before. Our body was not meant to eat that stuff. It was meant to eat real natural food, not
Cru-
junk that's been made up.
Brian, you crushed it 100%. And it's true. Not demonizing vegans, vegetarians. It's obviously it's whatever works for the individual. I think that's what makes this community so good, is that, we don't downplay the other side either. It's whatever helps subjectively that person. Will there be certain vitamins and minerals that they would be lacking? That's up to them within their journey, just like it's up to us, right? Like, for me, I know I've had issues sleeping. So I'll take like a magnesium supplement. Rarely do I ever do it. Rarely, but you kind of tweak it. I want to get back to the pills, because there is a carnivore ex bodybuilder. His name is Eddie Abu. Have you ever heard of him? He's
I
awesome.
don't think so.
I'm gonna
No.
I'm gonna share a link, so you can get to know him. He's very raw though, like very straightforward. Right? I'm very sensitive with language. I always like a educational, like how you're bringing it to the table. F bombs, not a big camper of F bombs, but I get it in all good context. I understand it. And this gentleman is just he's pissed off. He's like, I've been a bodybuilder for all of this time, backache, whatever the case is. Was it the weights? Was it this? And now that he has changed, he's just eating meat and he's making everything seem very clear. And he's onto something. I remember when I was going through this whole weight shift and whatnot, to me, I didn't know the root cause. I didn't know, how to get my cravings down. And I remember going to my primary care physician and he gave me a pill. To this day, I don't know what that pill is called, but I had told him, listen, doc, I have these cravings. I can't stop eating. You see, I'm 245 pounds, close to 250. I really should be weighing somewhere around maybe anywhere between 165 and 180. Like that should be my fluctuating weight. He's like, all right, I'm going to put you on something. Like, okay, cool. This must have been probably 2015, 2016. I kid you not, Brian. I took it, cravings gone, gone. The energy that I had I was clear minded. I was functioning at work at a million miles per hour, and I sensed certain things that were about to happen, and I would rectify it. Then 7 p.m. came, and it was like that movie Limitless with that little pill. When it would go away, I would have 3 times the amount of hunger, and I couldn't sleep at night. Now, I couldn't wait until 7 a.m. the next morning because I was restless all night to take the pill again. I was on it for about 4 days. And as I'm driving to work, I looked at the pills and I said, I'm dependent on this. I'm dependent on these pills. And I chucked it. I threw it right at, I know you're not supposed to do that with Medicaid. I get it. I already had an alibi that I was like abducted and they took my pills away. And I threw it out. I'm like, I can't be doing this. For the next 6 weeks, the cravings escalated. And it's the craziest thing. That's why I always attribute it to where I'm at right now. Like, I don't want to even give it space because it's waiting to rear its ugly head back into my life. I'm trying my best to always remember that and learning from the experiences. And you're right. Everything is instant gratification. Like you alluded to, AI is, they don't want you thinking. They don't even want you even fathoming a thought. They want to do it for you. And I think that's the end game. It's not money. It's not, owning you. It's having a full dominion of your thoughts, of your actions, what you're about to do. Now, I'm going to pose something, and this blew my mind. Same age ranges. So it seems that whenever you're online or you're at a department store and you swipe your credit card, now your credit card or your debit card has all of your information. And we all know that sometimes there's a breach, or even the company itself, sometimes they disclose your personalized information, they get sued, they disseminate some money, and everyone's happy. But the problem is the issue was made. Your personal information's out there. Now, with this all AI that's out, and when they do receive all of this information, your personal information, they can predict what your thoughts are based on a pattern, like freaking psychic crap. But because of their algorithms, they'll know. Has this ever happened to you, Brian? Like you're thinking of something, let's say a blue couch. You didn't even look for a blue couch. Didn't even think of a blue couch. It's not even in your history. You go on your phone, and lo and behold, oh my goodness, it's like a litany of blue couches. Where are we going in 10 years if we don't stop what we're doing right now? Where do you see civilization? What's up, Lori?
Wow. So I got to say, I've never had that happen with thinking about something, but I don't know that I really think about things a lot like that. But I will tell you that our phones are really, really bad for us, and social media is really, really bad for us. And a perfect example is not too long ago, I was talking to my wife about something, had my phone right next to me. I didn't look, didn't do any types of searches, just talking to her. And a few minutes later, I went into Facebook and something on that topic came up as an ad on Facebook, that topic we were just talking about. So if you think that your phone cannot hear what's happening, you think that social media is not paying attention somehow. I don't know exactly how it's happening, but I'm telling you, that kind of stuff is happening. You have Amazon Alexa or whatever it is at home, and you're talking, it listens to you. There are times we're talking and I look over and you see like the lights flashing on it, like it's listening to you, it's paying attention. And then every once in a while it dings that it's got a notification for you, and you ask the notification and it says recommendations for things for you to buy through Amazon. There are so many things like that that people think it's technology and it's great, but it's also a bad thing. Technology is a good thing, and it's also a bad thing. It's also ruining our society. AI is definitely becoming the next big thing. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen in 10 years. I do know that I'm old enough to know, like back in the 80s and stuff, they said that robots computers were going to take a lot of people's jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and that was going to be a bad thing. And it did take jobs. So you can definitely say that. There are people that worked, like, for instance, let's use the um, auto industry, that worked in factories and plants, and they need less people now because of different machinery that can do different things. So there's that kind of stuff that happened. But it wasn't all the doom and gloom that a lot of people said.
Right.
What I don't know is AI going to be the same way? Is it going to take jobs but not be all the doom and gloom that people say? Or is it going to be the doom and gloom? I don't know. And I think part of it is how much we allow it to happen.
You're right.
I think not John, Rick said somewhere in there something about phone. What did I see? Yeah, my phone cannot listen to me.
Yeah, he's
He
smart.
still uses a landline, you know.
Love it.
So, and here's the other thing that you see: like, a lot of people are starting to get into the whole idea of getting away, going on a trip, and not looking at social media, not having their cell phones on, that kind of stuff. Those are good things. I think that we need to make those types of boundaries. Right now, there are no boundaries, and it's just running wild. But if we can kind of make boundaries, then maybe it's going to be better. I don't know. I can tell you at 52 years old, the life that my kids have been growing up in is completely different than the life that I grew up in. And they can't even understand how different it was. Like, for them, they can text or call somebody if they're out and there's a situation that they need help or whatever, very easily. Or they want to get a hold of somebody and say, hey, we're out doing this. Do you want to join us or whatever? They can do all that stuff. When I was a kid, you couldn't. If you wanted to get a hold of somebody and you were out, you went to the store on the corner, walked up to the payphone, put 25 cents in it, and tried to call somebody.
Absolutely.
Oh, and you get their parent, they're not home. Oh, I just wasted 25 cents. Dang it. You know? But it was like stuff like that. If you had like some sort of an emergency, like people today like talk like, I have a flat tire. I have to call somebody real quick to take care of it. When you were our age, you couldn't. You're stuck on the side of the highway. You couldn't call anybody. There weren't phones to do that kind of stuff. You had to handle the situation yourself. So it's a completely different age. I can't imagine what it's like to grow up now. But again, it goes back to that instant gratification thing, that things have been made more simpler for us because of technology. And I don't know, as we continue, at what point do we hit that technology starts to be a bit of a downfall? I don't know.
It's a dangling carrot, right? If you think about it. So I know that, like, when you buy a brand new phone, there's, I think, services and agreements that you have to adhere to, right? You have to do the little check mark and you give an attestation that, yep, you know what, I agree. The wild part is, within those stipulations, there's a section that says these agreements may become amended without your consent. So think about that for a second. So if we could cry wolf and we could say, hey, yo, it's a breach of privacy. They're listening into what I'm saying, just like in your example, same thing. We gave them the okay. We gave them the, you know what, do what you want, as long as I can have this little mark of the beast with me all the time, I'm okay. It's the wildest thing, because they start slowly. They test the waters. Again, bringing this all together with food, they tested the waters with Ansel Keys. Let's see how far we can get with this. Let's see if the population is smart enough to say, this is not good for me. And I believe our ancestors, and I'm not talking about like the 1700s. I'm talking about, the I think they call them the greatest generation, like the one from the 1900s. Those were able to discern. Then you had the silent generation, which my parents were, and believe it or not, whenever I would call them on the phone, and let's say we were talking about finances, one of my parents would say, "Shh, we don't talk about those things. I don't know what you're talking about," and they hang up because they had the ability to say, there's something nefarious. I don't know if it's a sixth sense or their way of living throughout, the world wars. They would say, no, we don't talk about those things. And whenever there would be a negativity that come into the house, that the outside influence would try to disrupt the family dynamic, they would push it away. They wouldn't look for instant gratification. I think they have desensitized my generation, the one that's before, baby boomers, to even now to the point where I don't think they're even testing the waters anymore. They know what works and how to get us to the point where Chat GPT, it has become so acceptable. And I'm a guilty party as well. I'm guilty. I'm driving and I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me talk to someone. And I'm having a full-blown conversation with who is this? I'm arguing with a robot. Like I'm arguing with Johnny Five. It's the craziest thing. Yes, Lori. There's a few left. That's why I love speaking to like Carnivore Mitch, all of these individuals that have lived through so much. And I've been watching a lot of Johnny Carson's shows where he had a special segment where he would invite the elderly, 85 years old to 105, 112. And Brian, they were on their P's and Q's, man. They're singing songs, dancing. It's mind blowing, man. It's just mind blowing that I know that we can get to that point, but we have to fight this Goliath. And I think with faith and strength and discernment, wisdom, we can get to that point.
Yeah. Can we go back really quick to Lori's comment from 8:30 there? It says, in some ways, things are more complicated now. I think that's a great point to bring up. And this ties into eating because, excuse me, that is true. And hold on a second, I need a drink.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Oh, sorry. But that's true. Things were simpler. You didn't have all the confusion that you have now with everything, all the chaos and everything. And it's the same. It's the same way with food. People today have a hard time understanding what things were like for us. And as you're older, it's harder to understand what's happening right now. Look at Rick. He's been eating this way. Excuse me. He's been eating this way for over 40 years, like 42. He might even be close to 43 years now. He can't understand the temptations, the cravings of different foods like sweets and so forth. To him, they're completely disgusting because that's what he knows. That's what he understands. Right? It's rare in this day and age because so many people have been eating that food and they're so used to that food. But for him, he's still back in those simpler times. Could you imagine taking somebody from, we'll just say 1900, putting them into today's food and having them eat it? First of all, they'd be like, this tastes different. And could you imagine the reactions they would have because they're not used to eating that type of food? Um, that's the one thing. Like Rick is in a lot of different live streams, always in the comments. He's great. I've had him on my live streams. I've interviewed him. He was the very first interview I ever done. And he's somebody that I think we should all strive to be, but he's a very unique person.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that we could be at the point that Rick is, where the temptations don't bother us, and we can say, like, there's no way I want to eat that thing. That anytime I've tried it, it's completely disgusting. But we're not wired the same because we haven't been doing what he's been doing for so long. And that's another reason why I say you can't eat the same way for 48 years and then expect it all to go away in just a couple of years. It takes time. Going back to what we were saying earlier, if we do get to the point of like Rick and we start having people eat the right way and not eating these foods their entire life, we can improve our health and how long we live, especially with the technology we have. There's good and bad things with technology. The technology we have can fix things that back in the old days we couldn't, right? People were dying from infections because they got cut and we didn't understand how to clean infections up and stuff like that, right? So there's technology now that we have. So I think that is a great point that can tie into food, that it's actually a lot harder today and a lot more complicated today than it was back then. It was a more simple time. We didn't have all those temptations.
It's true.
Yeah.
You know,
Maggie,
you said something interesting when you were posed a question. Are you ever going back? Are you going to eat carnivore for the rest of your life? You know, and I get asked that question a lot from family, you know, is like, it's not normal. It's not normal to eat like this. And that's what's mind blowing. Like, again, the same example from a person from the 1900s. For them, eating maybe twice a day was normal. Like, okay, you know what? There's a time to eat, there's a time to work, there's a time to sleep. Your time is divided, but all for its function. So you have your full mindset on the next task at hand. Nowadays, it's, for example, you know, we had a family outing, you know, for my father-in-law's 70th birthday, right? So we all went to Dominican Republic. And right there, my wife's side of the family saw how I was eating. And they couldn't believe it. They're like, you're on vacation, you know, you could have a drink, you could have a beer. I'm like, no, I feel great. You know, doing the grounding on the sand and enjoying every second with my family and the ones that I love the most. And then they would go for breakfast and I was like, all right, just have at it, enjoy, you know. And I know Dr. Barry, he always brings up a funny illustration. He's like, hey, you know, whenever I'm going to go out with friends, I'm not going to be that jerk not to eat. I'm that jerk. Right? I'm the guy that when I go to a restaurant with friends, I'll say, hey, look, I'm sorry to be that guy, but I'm going to just take a steak. Can you place that on a grill? I'm allergic, and you don't want me dropping dead. Like, I make it so ominous for the waiter that they're like, look, we don't want like a lawsuit, even though I know that I've had sugars before, whatever the case is. But I want to have them accountable to know, hey, look, you know, this is something serious from a customer. Like, cook it the right way. If you can't, that's not a problem. I just won't eat. Like, there have been many times where I go with friends and I just don't eat. Like, we'll go to like a pub or whatever the case is. They're having a beer, they're having wings, and I'm like, I'm okay. It's just that it's that peer pressure, right? And that's what I wanted to ask. And number one, thank you, man, for your time. This is one of the longest live streams I've ever had, and I just enjoy talking to you, man. And this is so great. And if we're gonna tie it up in just a second. How was it for you when you went towards this lifestyle? Friends, family, knowing all of the ailments that you had, and now you're pivoting towards a venture where it is kind of like keto. It had a little bit of backing, but this was quote unquote extreme. Was there pushback from your family and friends?
Yeah, I don't know how much of it was pushback, because I think it's more of a, well, you can kind of do what you want to do type deal, but that's bad for you. Like, you're going to have a heart attack, that type of thing. And my mindset at the time was, okay, that could happen. If it does, it's not any different than the road I'm going down right now. Like, I feel like I'm at my lowest. And that's usually what helps people to go this way, is when they feel that they are at their lowest. And that's how I felt. I felt that it wouldn't be any different, that I was going down a path that I wasn't going to live very much longer. So I was okay with taking that risk. And they didn't necessarily like it, but it was like, okay, that's your decision type thing. Then they started to see changes in me. They saw the weight loss, just the changes starting to have, be happy, that kind of stuff, instead of always being sad, that kind of thing. And I started hearing things like, well, it's definitely working for you. I'm still not sure that I'm sold on that because of the cholesterol and what that can do to your heart and all that kind of stuff, but it does seem to be working for you. And now it's more of a, yeah, that's great. It's worked for you. I wish I could do something like that, but I just can't. There's the different excuses, like, there's no way that I can go without eating carbs, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes. Yep.
Which, okay, they haven't hit that lowest point that I hit, because a lot of times that's what happens to people. You've hit rock bottom, and that's what gets you to change. Unfortunately, people don't want to change when they're still semi-healthy, right? It's when they've already done all the damage to their body. That's when they're like, I got to do something about this. So yeah, that's kind of where it is. There's definitely, I've definitely gotten to the point that I've changed people's minds on different things. Like, for instance, different family members or friends now question whether or not cholesterol, saturated fat is actually bad for you. Eating meat is actually bad for you. Where before there was no doubt in their mind it was. But they see the changes I have. They hear me whenever we talk about it, which doesn't happen a lot anymore, because I've come to the conclusion that you can't change somebody and get them to do something unless they're ready for it. But when we do talk about it, I talk about the different things. I talk about why a study might show up this way with those results or something.
Yep.
I talk about, well, if cholesterol really is so bad for you, then why does your brain need it to function? Why does your brain fog go away when you're eating more saturated fat? Just the different things. It gets them kind of thinking, and I've gotten to that point where they're at least thinking like, yeah, I wonder if that really is the case. Like, maybe we've had it wrong, and eating red meat isn't necessarily bad for you.
Right.
So I've gotten to that point with people, which is a good thing. I've just kind of realized that there's very few people that are going to follow your footsteps. Now that you can be an inspiration, and if they're close to that rock bottom, or they're at that rock bottom and they see what you've done, that's where you're the inspiration, and they can be like, huh, I'm going to try what he did. Like, I talked about that with keto, right? I was at rock bottom, and I knew people that had lost weight with keto. So I decided to try keto. That's how I got going in this whole direction with carnivore. So there is that, at least. And there are a couple people I know that have tried Carnivore. I don't know necessarily how well they're doing with it, but I do know that when I do talk to them, they will say, every time I go to Carnivore, I feel so great. I wish I would stay with it, and I just don't necessarily stick with it, that type of thing. Or they do like the yo-yo thing, but it's very few people that do that. And that's unfortunately probably part of that instant gratification thing again, right? Like, unless you're at rock bottom that you feel like you really want to change things, you're just going to take the easy button.
Brian, listen, my man, what a pleasure it was to speak to you. Thank you so much for hopping on, man. And you are always welcome. This is, like I said before, this is one of the longest live streams. I enjoyed every minute of it. You spit facts, genuine. Thank you for your vulnerability as well. I do believe your story will impact so many lives. And, you know, anytime I'm on, whatever the case is, if you're ever in New York, you let me know. I will treat you to a fogo de chao on me, my man, because you and me, we got a lot in common, brother.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm not that far away. I'm in Virginia, so just a few hours away.
Yeah, I might even do a road trip down there. So if anything, yeah, I'll call you. I'll bring my grill and everything. I'll just do it in your backyard and then just come back home.
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, thank you so much, man. We'll definitely be in contact.
All right.
Later, everybody. God bless.
Thanks.